think there's a certain energy when you have two meetings in 1 week. So I call to order the Lynnwood City Council work session of Wednesday, March 18th, 2026 at 6 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor Hurst.
Yes.
Council President Coelho.
Here.
Council Vice President Escamilla.
Here.
Councilmember Lutweiler.
Here.
Councilmember Mata.
Here.
Councilmember Owings.
Present.
Councilmember Partial.
Ready.
Councilmember Wright.
Here.
All present, Mayor.
Very good, thank you. The only comment I have since we've just seen each other 2 days ago, so trying to run a little tighter ship, and I'm going to be paying more attention to the minutes that we allot for each item. So I'm thinking I will do a shout out when there's like 15 minutes left to any presenter, so that you know that might be the time to stop so we could have council questions. But I think that's the desire of this council right now, so that's what we're going to do. Anyone have any council comments? Okay, well, let's start with Council President.
Thanks, Mayor. Just to kind of reiterate what you just talked about, we've been having pretty long meetings, and there's nothing wrong with that. That means we're doing our jobs. Having these conversations is something I really wanted to make sure I was bringing out of the group. But having some stronger timekeeping I think could be really helpful just to keep us on track. And I just want to reiterate, again, if you guys can send questions in advance to directors when they're coming to speak or any staff that are coming to speak, that can help them be prepared to answer our questions pretty quickly, either ahead of time like Director Bond did or during the meeting itself. But I think if we're kind of working together on that, we can move through our meetings a little bit more productively. Beyond that, I'm preparing for next week's State of the City. I will be opening for the mayor, and I'm planning to have a slideshow presentation, and I'm looking for pictures of each of you guys doing something in the community, whether that's volunteer work or something that you're particularly proud of that you think has improved the community. So if you can shoot me a picture and maybe just a brief description of what it is in the next few days to my email, I would really appreciate it. Thanks.
Great, you have 30 more seconds if you want to use it. Okay, I'm not going to time you guys. Councilmember Mata, I think you had a hand up.
Yeah, just a quick thing. I just sent you all an email, but I wanted to give you a heads up that I'm going to ask for the contract for the underpass project to be pulled out of the unanimous consent agenda. I just think given the budget crisis that we're in, we need to be being really, really conscientious of what new projects we are approving right now. That's it.
Any other council members? Councilmember Partial.
I just want to say I'm really grateful for having a light rail here in Lynnwood. I have been kind of spoiled by taking the train lately, and this morning I plan to drive to Tacoma and back this afternoon, and the Ship Canal Bridge is really brutal right now. So leaving at 6:15 a.m., it took me an hour and a half to get down to Tacoma, and it took me almost 2 hours to get back to Lynnwood this afternoon. So I missed that train, and I can't wait for it to be extended farther.
That's what I was going to say. Any other council members wish to speak now? Forever hold your peace. Okay. All right. Oh, I turned myself off. Sorry. Okay. So let's get to any comments and questions on memo items. I doubt there are because there are no memo items. So let's go with the work session items. Item 6A, which is State of the Court. Presiding Judge Valerie Bofu, D. Morrell, Director of Court Administration, and Robert Grant, Court Commissioner, I see is here also. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Let's see if I can bend this down. All right. So every year on or about March 15th, the court is required by ordinance to provide a State of the Court memorandum, annual report to the mayor and the city council. And, oh, thank you so much, Esty. And I had mentioned to Council President that that would be coming from the court soon. And it was his idea that because we had so many new council members that it might be helpful for the court to present it in person. And so that's what brings me here to you today, to let you know what the state of the court is. A lot of this is going to be a wrap-up of sort of 2025, but I've also included information about current court projects and future court projects as well. I think given the way that I'm going to be shifting topics, it might actually be more helpful to be able to answer questions as we go, as opposed to saving them to the end. So if you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt me. So I am going to begin with the idea of judicial independence, which is incredibly important, and something that the city of Lynnwood is actually a model for other courts in our state about. So judicial independence means that the judiciary is a branch. We're not a department of the city. When it comes to organizational charts within the city, the court must be placed so that it is clearly identified as the third branch of government. Believe it or not, this doesn't occur in every city, something that we in the state judiciary are still working to fix. But again, Lynnwood's a model. You can be sure that we're separate on your organizational chart. Judges don't report to the mayor. We don't report to the city manager. We don't report to other department heads. But that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with liaising. So we definitely need to work collaboratively with city council and with the executive department. The presiding judge, I'm the one who proposes the court budget to city council. Court staff report to the presiding judge. I control the court staff's working conditions. I control hiring, firing, discipline. I control union grievances. And the court is at the bargaining table with our court clerks union with regards to working conditions. The court's kind of an interesting animal when it comes to union negotiations, because by court rule and by law, the court controls the working conditions of all court staff. However, it's the executive branch that controls the economic provisions of the contract. So when it comes to wages and benefits, it's the executive. Usually it's the HR director or representatives who is at the bargaining table. But again, my representative, who is the director of court administration, is at the bargaining table for the court for working conditions. And the court's not allowed to delegate any of these responsibilities outside of its branch. So as busy as we get, being our finance department, HR department, union negotiator, all of these many hats that we have to wear, I can't ask someone from the mayor's office to take that responsibility on, because that would be a violation of court rule. I would then get in trouble with the Supreme Court. So in Washington State, our courts are sort of split into 4 sections. At the bottom would be courts of limited jurisdiction, and those are the courts that individuals are most likely to come into contact with. These are the courts where you're going to go for your traffic tickets, where you might go for small claims. These are the courts that are municipal courts and district courts. And above that, when you have to deal with felonies, when you have to deal with civil matters that involve a certain higher amount of money, when you're dealing with family law matters or juvenile court matters, that all goes up to our Superior Court. Our Superior Court is on 3000 Rockefeller in the city of Everett. So the big courthouse up there is where the Superior Court is. Above that would be the Court of Appeals. We have 3 separate divisions of courts of appeals in the state of Washington. And then the court of last resort for the state of Washington is the state Supreme Court. So the difference between a Superior Court and the municipal court is the type of cases that we handle when it comes to criminal matters. In the municipal court, we only handle misdemeanors and gross misdemeanors. Felony matters always go up to Superior Court, except in certain circumstances, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. A misdemeanor is something that's punishable by up to 90 days in jail and a $1,000 fine. A gross misdemeanor is punishable by up to 364 days in jail and a $5,000 fine. And a felony is defined as anything punishable by over a year in jail. Council President Cuellar.
Yeah, could you just give a few examples of each, what kind of crimes would fit within each of these?
Absolutely. That's great. Okay, so something along the lines of disorderly conduct, where you're sort of using abusive language that could create a risk of assault, that would be considered a misdemeanor, punishable by up to 90 days in jail, a $1,000 fine. Something like you're trespassing, but not inside of a building, you're trespassing outside of a building on someone's property. Same thing, punishable by up to 90 days in jail, a $1,000 fine. Now, let's say you trespass inside of a building. Suddenly, that becomes a different level of trespass with a higher penalty, 364 days in jail, a $5,000 fine. Now, these are not the penalties that people are necessarily getting. It's just the maximum amount that a court has the ability under the law to impose. When we talk about sort of more serious crimes that occur within the court, things like domestic violence, assault, driving under the influence, those are gross misdemeanors. So they're going to be punishable by up to 364 days in jail and up to a $5,000 fine. Now, as I said, we're not supposed to be dealing with any felony matters. However, a lot of folks who have been on council long enough remember some of the presentations that you've been given by the county prosecutor about their budget and staffing issues that have resulted in them changing their charging standards, meaning things that are technically felonies under the law, they no longer have the resources to prosecute. And so the most common would be for the city of Lynnwood, shoplifting. If someone shoplifts an amount that is greater than $750, technically that's a felony. Right now, the Snohomish County charging standard says it has to be over $3,000 for them to consider it for charges. So all of those cases now are getting kicked down to our court. There are also some other offenses that we're starting to see getting kicked down to our court too, such as possession of stolen vehicles, some harassment cases. When you threaten to kill someone, technically that's a felony. We're starting to see some of those cases get kicked back down to our court as well. And that, again, is based on their published charging standards, based on their current resource issues. All right, so we do handle misdemeanor and gross misdemeanor. No, going back. We do handle misdemeanor and gross misdemeanor cases. Yes.
Quick question. When you do get a case kicked down, do you have a choice?
No.
Or it stays there?
Correct.
Okay.
We take what's filed with the court. We can't reject cases. So if a case is filed by the Lynnwood Police Department, it's filed. We deal with it. So we handle the misdemeanor and gross misdemeanors. We handle all of the infractions. We handle the photo enforcement, all of the red light and school zone tickets. And we also handle City of Lynnwood vehicle impounds. Those are the only civil cases that we handle, and those would be impounds that have been made by the City Police Department where an individual appeals the vehicle impound. That comes before our court. For these types of cases, we operate only within the jurisdiction of the city limits of Lynnwood. So if a crime occurs in unincorporated Lynnwood, that would be a county case. It would go to county district court. If it occurs within the incorporated city limits, that comes to our court. So just so you know, when you're speaking with your constituents, there are things that we do not handle, and I have certainly seen posts where our court has been accused of handling some of these things and gotten the blame for things that other courts have done. We do not handle felony matters. We certainly do not handle juvenile cases. Those are handled by the Superior Court. We do not handle civil lawsuits. We do not handle small claims. We also do not handle civil protection orders. We don't have jurisdiction over those. Those need to go to district court or Superior Court. And we do not handle family law matters. So while I may be delighted to perform someone's wedding as part of my judicial functions, I cannot then handle their divorce if it doesn't work out. So some of the case types that we handle, as I said, theft, it's supposed to be under $750, but there's an asterisk there for what I had just explained to you. We handle drug possession, DUI, assault, domestic violence, violation of protection orders, hit and run, reckless driving, harassment, driving on a suspended license, possession of dangerous weapons. And it may surprise you, but our court actually handles registrable sex offenses as well that are gross misdemeanors, and that could include communicating with a minor for immoral purposes, or it could include something like attempted rape of a child in the third degree. Those cases do come before our court. We're going to move on to our court operations and caseload. So the structure of the court currently is that we employ a total of 17 people. That includes the presiding judge. I am elected by the people of the city of Lynnwood. I'm elected every 4 years. We have Commissioner Grant right here, and Commissioner Grant is appointed and serves at the pleasure of the presiding judge. Our court leadership team, and this is a non-represented, non-union team, consists of our Director of Court Administration, Dee Morrill, an Assistant Court Administrator, a Court Operations Supervisor, and our Probation Supervisor. We have funding for 10 court clerks, 1 probation officer. Those are all represented by AFSCME. We also fund a full-time court marshal who is supervised by the Lynnwood Police Department, and we fund the private unarmed security personnel who are at the security checkpoint at the court's entrance. So, when it comes to our organizational chart, you're going to see that there are 3 at the bottom that are redlined. That's because we currently have 3 vacancies in our court clerks. We received funding to hire additional court clerks. We actually agreed with the prior administration last year that we would hold vacancies to assist with the budget. We did so. We began our efforts to hire at the beginning of 2026, and I can tell you that we do have a successful hire who will be joining us on the 30th. So one of those vacant positions will go, the red will disappear, but then we are going to have to go out and hire again. It's a very difficult climate for hiring people to do this work. There's very little opportunity of lateral folks coming from other courts. Much like with the police department, we're kind of in a cold war with other courts when it comes to pay. And that pay just keeps going up and up and up and up and ratcheting up. And post-COVID, what I've discovered is that one of the things that people value most is actually lack of commute. And so if you live near the court where you work, that's going to be more valuable than maybe even that extra $1 or $2 an hour. And so we've lost some individuals due to the distance that they've had to commute, and they've found other jobs in other lines of work. And then we just lost a generation of very experienced court clerks during COVID as well to retirement, and then not being able to hire and train during that period. We're trying to stagger out our hiring right now because it's very difficult for us to train that many people at once and still focus on training the newer folks that we have on board right now. But I'm very proud of our leadership team. We have a fantastic leadership team that have, I think, almost a century of experience between, maybe more than a century of experience between the 4 of them, and 3 of which I was able to steal from other courts, and those judges are still not pleased with me. All right, so looking at 2025, in 2025 we had 58,128 cases filed in the court. We held 22,987 hearings, and the court's monetary intake was $6,328,762. I don't call it revenue because the court is not intended to be a revenue generator, so you're going to hear me call it monetary intake for that reason. When we split up our case filings for 2025, when it comes to what categories those all fit into, that was 150 DUIs, 243 other traffic crimes, such as reckless driving, driving on a suspended license, hit and run, 1,594 non-traffic crimes, and that could be anything from domestic violence assault to trespassing to shoplifting. We had 3,403 infractions, 12 civil matters, those would be vehicle impounds, and then 52,726 photo enforcement cases filed with the court. So let's talk about Lynnwood versus other courts. We have 9 courts of limited jurisdiction within Snohomish County with a total of 18 judicial officers between them. In 2025, there were 242,274 cases filed in all of Snohomish County district and municipal courts. We made up 1/4 of all cases filed in Snohomish County, just our court and our little 7 square mile city. Yes.
You said that sometimes we get overflow of felonies or just other things from the county to the courts. Do they provide any type of financial assistance for the workload that you are then taking on because they don't have the resources to handle it?
They don't have the resources to give us that.
Fair enough. So it just adds more work. That's it.
Correct.
Fine. Okay.
All right. So if we look at a comparison of all of the different courts in Snohomish County, all of the courts of limited jurisdiction, this is excluding Superior Court, so all 4 of the Snohomish County District Courts and every other municipal court that exists, you will see, again, Lynnwood by far and away, really, in the past we've made up 1/3 of filings. At this point, the only court that's starting to get close to us is Everett Municipal Court, and that's because they started up a photo enforcement program. When they did that, they hired a third judicial officer. So now Everett Municipal Court, who still has fewer cases than Lynnwood, has 2 judges and a commissioner. And then when you look at the monetary intake, because it takes a lot of work to process the money, too. We don't hold on to the money. We're just sort of a way station between the customer and the general fund. And so when it comes to processing the monetary intake, that requires court clerk and court management work. And again, you'll see we far outpace the all other courts in the county. So the nice thing is that you actually have, in the Revised Code of Washington, guidance on what your responsibility is as a legislative body when it comes to funding the court. And the law says that there is an obligation to fund the court. The city's responsible for prosecuting, adjudicating, sentencing, incarcerating misdemeanor and gross misdemeanor offenses within the jurisdiction. And the RCW requires the city to fully fund a municipal court, saying, quote, all costs of operating the municipal court shall be paid wholly out of the funds of the city or town. The city shall provide a suitable place for holding court and pay all the expenses of maintaining it. You guys are doing that, so thank you. I appreciate that. The obligation includes, but is not limited to staff wages, records, dockets, forms, furnishings, supplies, courtroom space, and maintenance. So turning to the court's budget, and Councilperson Mata actually got a preview of this when she attended the court orientation, and I do want to be able to reschedule that with Councilmember Owings and Wright whenever you're ready. This is going to be actually a lot of what we cover during the orientation here, but then we do some really fun, interesting stuff too. So we'll be reaching out to you. Our budget is made up of, I've broken it down into 3 areas: salary and benefits, non-discretionary, and discretionary. Our non-discretionary budget consists of things where we have no choice but to pay by law. That would be providing interpreters for court-involved individuals, the costs of paying jurors when we have a jury trial, technology, pro tem judges if I decide to go on vacation, if I'm sick, if Judge Grant can't hear a case. We have to hire a substitute judge to come in and hear those cases for us. Postage, we spend a lot of money on postage because we send out a lot of summons and jury summons. Rentals, leases, things like our copiers and printers are rented, and insurance. Our discretionary fund is 1% of our budget, and that would be things like Post-its, furniture. We just splurged and got a laminating machine for $40. It was a big deal to do that. Very minor equipment, repair and maintenance, necessary training, necessary travel for training, and then required association dues. Each one of us is part of an association up here. Commissioner Grant and I are both part of the District and Judges, Municipal and District Court Judges Association. Director Morrill is part of DMCMA, which is a managers association. Our probation officers are part of a probation association. And so there are some fees and association dues that come with that, but it also opens up things like free training for us as well. So to visualize our budget, here it is. 85% is salary and benefits, 14% stuff that we are required to pay for by law, 1%, probably less than 1% discretionary. So we run a very, very, very lean ship over at the court, and we always have. So when we compare this to the average Snohomish County District Court, this is how cool we are. Our court deals with 143% more cases. We process 85% more revenue with 25% less staff than the average Snohomish County District Court. So again, we are efficient, and we are lean, and we are very fiscally responsible. One of the things that the ordinance requires me to report on is our compliance with our judicial responsibilities, and I am happy to report that we are complying. So we continue to operate in compliance with all applicable state statutes, case law, court rules, local ordinances governing the administration of justice. We work diligently to make sure that all of our proceedings are conducted fairly, efficiently, that we're providing access to the court, access to justice, with appropriate regard for the rights and dignity of defendants, victims, and the public. moving on, written complaints or expressions of concern. I'm always, every year when I do this, I'm always curious how I'm supposed to respond to this, because I don't think that I could include every complaint that our court receives in a format that you would be able to consume in time for me to present it to you. So, yeah, we got a significant volume of written materials from petitioners, defendants. Some of them include expressions of dissatisfaction or concern. We respond to them when we are able to, and when they're not threatening or criminal in nature. That's a huge amount of what our court clerks do, is answer phones and talk to people about photo enforcement, people who are not happy about getting a photo enforcement ticket. This is 98% of what they do all day. But our court clerks are amazing, and they're incredibly empathetic and incredibly professional on the phone, and are usually able to work people through to where they need to be, to a resolution where they have felt heard. One of the things that a lot of people don't understand is that judges are actually prohibited from engaging in communications with litigants, especially if they're represented, and certainly not when you're off record. So we have judicial conduct rules and canons, and one of the canons says you can't have what's called ex parte contact with one party when the other party isn't there. So if someone calls and says, I really need to talk to the judge about this, or I need to make a complaint to the judge, they may be very frustrated to hear the judge absolutely cannot do that, because I would then be subject to discipline action by the Judicial Conduct Commission. That does not mean that staff can't answer questions with regards to procedural issues or try to help them. It just means they're not going to be able to have that conversation with me, which can be very frustrating, because typically in city government you can't have a conversation with individuals in your government. But judges just have very special rules that say we can't do that. I can talk to you when I'm on the bench, when your lawyer is there, and when the city's lawyer is there. And that's to ensure procedural fairness and to make sure that nothing inappropriate is happening without the other party being there. So we do have a Judicial Conduct Commission, and once again, I am happy to report that I am not aware of any complaints to the Judicial Conduct Commission regarding me, Commissioner Grant, or any of my staff. So we all, those of us who are engaged in the associations, engage in statewide service. So, and it's not ceremonial. It's actually incredibly important for us to engage in statewide service. And I think those of you who are able to go to your Day on the Hill were able to see how important it is to be there with other cities, to be able to speak directly to your legislators, to be able to convey this is what's going on in my city, and to advocate for your city, and then to also have that reciprocal relationship with your legislators. So we are, as I said, Commissioner Grant and I are both involved in the District and Municipal Court Judges Association. I last year was elected by our state to serve on the Board of Governors, representing the full-time municipal courts for the state of Washington. I serve on the Council on Independent Courts. I serve on the Legislative Committee, which is why you saw me at our Day on the Hill. And I was selected to join the Legislative Committee executive team this last session. So that meant before court started every Monday at 8 a.m., I was on a Zoom call every Monday talking about bills of interest that week and what might impact the court, and then to advocate for things that could impact our city directly. I have been appointed I was recently appointed by our president to serve on the Long Range Planning Committee. I just had my first meeting with that today. Commissioner Grant jumped right into service as soon as he joined the bench, and so he serves on the Council on Independent Courts, as well as the Legislative Committee. He was there for the Day on the Hill, but he was actually talking with one of our legislators when you guys came over to the Temple of Justice. And again, being able to do that, it allows us to advocate for Lynnwood Municipal Court on a statewide level. One of the other committees that I serve on is actually going to be become important later on in this presentation. It's called the Judicial Information System Committee and Data Dissemination Committee. This might sound boring to every single person here except Councilmember Lutweiler. But the pyramids there that I included, that's actually a picture representation of how our digital judicial data is currently warehoused in the state of Washington. So I've been serving on that committee. I was appointed by the Supreme Court to serve on that committee. It's operated by the Administrative Office of the Courts. We are responsible for the oversight of all Washington state judicial information systems, and we address issues with respect to the dissemination of information from our judicial systems. And then the other thing I did last year was I was appointed to be a teacher at our Washington State Judicial College. One of the really interesting things about the city of Lynnwood is the wide number of languages that are spoken in the city of Lynnwood and in our courts. For a 7 square mile city, we have, I think at this point, I know we have over 50 languages that are spoken in our court, and it might be more. We're adding more that I've never even heard of every day, which I love learning. There's a language out there I've never heard of. It gets expensive, though, paying for these interpreters, and it can be very difficult to find them. Zoom and COVID was a blessing and a curse in that Zoom opened us up to be able to have interpreters from all over the world Zoom in. However, there are rules with regards to the types of interpreters we can use. We're required to use Washington State certified interpreters, and they're becoming less available because now they have an opportunity to accept jobs all over the world too, and they're going to take the highest paying job. So because we use so many languages in the city of Lynnwood, they asked me to come start teaching about use of interpreters at Judicial College. Judicial College is something that all brand new judicial officers, from magistrates to commissioners to judges to state Supreme Court judges, they're all required to go in their first year of service. And so I got the opportunity to teach Commissioner Grant as well as one of our new Supreme Court justices. It was really fun. Yes.
I just ask a question on that. So for the cost of the interpreters as like a line item for what the city's paying, does that all flow through the court, or is it coming to us from, like, because we got public defenders, we've got the prosecutors, and then we've got the court? Like, is that 3 potential sources of where the city's being billed for that, or does that get consolidated? Can you describe that?
That's a great question, and our Director of Court Administration, Director Morrill, deals with that and can answer that question.
I can speak to that. Thank you. That's a great question. So there are different, for court interpreters, that does come from the court's budget. Those are invoices that come in day to day, pretty much all day long, and I process those invoices. That they go through the finance department, and a check gets cut to the interpreter directly. For interpreters for the legal department, I also process the interpreters. If somebody needs an interpreter while they meet with their attorney to go over, say, a plea agreement or something, I process those invoices, but that does come out of the executive legal budget.
All right, so we're going to turn to our 2025 court project. Our number one project over the last couple of years has been the remodel of the court while the new police department was being built and finalized. And this is a picture of what it looked like as the new police department was being constructed, and then you can see our dinky little courthouse there right below it. We occupied the court throughout the entirety of the remodel. At times it was very challenging. I remember having to make multiple announcements to people, no, we're not having an earthquake. They're just tearing down the building next to us. But in mid-25, the remodeling project was completed. This quadrupled our court space, and it was incredibly needed. We now operate 2 courtrooms on a full-time basis, which is something that has been a long time coming, given what you were able to see with regards to our filing numbers. It was becoming untenable, handling all of those cases out of one courtroom. So we now have 2 full-time courtrooms going. We are still finalizing some details. We have occasional plumbing issues. Elevator also needed to be replaced, still not functioning. There have been some groundwater issues. If you never had a nightmare about drowning in an elevator, apparently our elevator floods occasionally. So we've sealed it. It's only an inch. It's not like a Final Destination scene, but still, we had to shut it down, and so we were awaiting some final finishes to be able to operate our elevator. But again, because we have that first floor courtroom and we have a first floor clerk's office now, everything used to be on the second floor. Now that we have that, we're able to provide reasonable accommodations to individuals who cannot access the second floor, and we're doing that on a daily basis.
Just briefly, sorry, you said you quadrupled courtroom space or court space, which lets you run 2 full-time courtrooms.
Correct.
Am I misunderstanding my math? Are there 4 courtrooms? Or
No, we
Oh,
quadrupled
okay.
court space, physical space,
Okay.
as in we now have an upstairs clerk's office, a downstairs clerk's office, and our probation officers aren't operating out of a modified broom closet.
I
So-
figured there was a simple answer, so I
Yes,
just needed to
and jury
clarify that.
rooms. You know, we also have 2 dedicated jury rooms. We have a conference room. We've created private meeting rooms for attorneys and their clients. That didn't exist before. Every conversation used to have to happen in a public hallway. And so now we've created opportunities for things to work the way they should have always worked. But again, you know, we're, believe it or not, a very innovative city when it comes to this. We're ahead of the game compared to a lot of other courts in the state of Washington. So this year, this is what we're tackling. We're tackling Blake-affected cases. So in 2021, our Supreme Court decided that certain drug possession laws were unconstitutional, meaning that those laws were illegal. That was a case called State v. Blake. Because of that case, certain people convicted of certain drug and drug-related charges are entitled to have those convictions vacated and then have any fines and fees that they paid towards that conviction returned to them. The state originally provided funding to refund this money. There was a Blake Refund Bureau that was created. In 23, 24, 25, the state budget allocated $51 million for Blake refunds and related legal services, but then that was reduced, and that allocation was reduced to $6 million, so it was an 80% reduction. And part of the things that was paying for was publicizing and educating people that you could have these convictions removed from your record and get refunded any money that you had paid towards this. It was paying for legal aid organizations to assist people in vacating these cases at no cost, and that funding has been cut, and for 2027 beyond, there is no more funding. The funding will be gone. As it runs out, the city of Lynnwood could then bear the responsibility of refunding all legal financial obligations paid in those Blake-affected cases that have not been vacated. So we contacted the Administrative Office of Courts, and we asked them, hey, how many Blake-affected cases do we have? They ran a bit report. Originally they said, we think you have around 10,000. That seemed really high. So we went back through, combed through those cases, and found out the real number is closer to 3,100 Blake-affected cases. And those would be certain drug possession and marijuana possession cases. They date back to the inception of the municipal court, so back to 1989. Some of those cases could go. And as a matter of increasing access to justice, we are on our own going to be moving forward with vacating those convictions. We're not going to wait for people to go to legal aid organizations. We're not going to wait for them to find out about it a year from now, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. We're going to tackle this on our own, and this will allow these individuals to make their request for refunds from the state before that state funding expires. So why do we think that this is important? Even marijuana convictions, low-level drug possession convictions can create significant obstacles to individuals in the community. They can become a housing barrier. Individuals can deny applicants who have drug-related convictions. It can become an employment barrier when these things show up on background checks, especially in healthcare, education, public service. It can restrict people from receiving certain professional licenses, certifications, occupational licenses. It can cause credit and financial harm when you have unpaid legal financial obligations that should be vacated, removed from collections, and it is impacting people's credit scores. It can cause an educational barrier. A drug conviction restricts your eligibility for state and federal education benefits. You are not eligible for those benefits if you have a drug conviction. And then there can be potential immigration consequences as well for these convictions that our Supreme Court has said are illegal. So when we tackle this, we're hoping that spending the time that it's going to take to vacate these convictions is going to restore access to opportunity for these individuals. We're hoping that for our community, it improves employability, housing stability, financial health, and that it contributes directly to reducing recidivism within the community, increasing workforce participation, reducing reliance on social services, and creating stronger, more stable families. We believe that the project complies with the intent of the Supreme Court. Again, that's why we're not waiting for people to come to us, for them to find out about it and come to us. And a lot of courts are. I was just in a Zoom meeting today where a lot of the courts in Eastern Washington especially have said, this isn't our work. Unless someone comes and asks us to do it, it's not our work to do. But we believe that this is also going to reduce risk to the city with regards to potential responsibility to pay legal financial obligations after that funding runs out, and we think it's going to positively impact our community members. So what we did, and this is one of the things I'm really proud of, is that when one-time funding makes sense, we apply for grants, and we fight really hard for grants. And so we applied for funding with the Administrative Office of Courts, and we received funding to take on some of the work and to pay the administrative costs involved in processing these cases, including they're going to pay for the cost of temporary staff to do some of the work that a temp worker could do. It's a huge project, though. Processing these cases is a huge project, but we believe that the impact to the community is worth what it's going to sort of cost us in terms of time and effort to take this on. And then I've just included, it's very small, but I've included a sample of the letter that we intend to start sending out to individuals. One of the great things about this help that we're receiving from Administrative Office of Courts is they said, you come up with the forms, the legal forms. You create them, come up with them. We will take on mailing them out. We'll take on the postage and things like that, and we'll mail them out for you. And so that's going to be a cost savings for us as well. I think we are going to have to actually, though, pay for the cost of envelopes to send to Administrative Office of Courts that are, the self-addressed kind. But again, we think it's worth it. So looking forward to 2026, 2027, I said that committee that Councilmember Lutweiler might be interested in, the data dissemination and judicial information system committee would become important, and this is where it does. So the entire state of Washington is going to be going through a statewide case management system modernization program. The purpose of the project is to implement modern case management systems for all of our district and municipal courts and the probation departments. The project is going to replace the outdated legacy system that we've been using in the courts, and this system is from 1987. I personally love it. It's DOS-based. You run it with F keys. It's really easy. It's a workhorse. But the problem is there is no one left who knows how to program it anymore. It is dying, and once it dies, it's a car that nobody knows how to fix. So once it dies, it's gone forever. So the project is overseen by the Judicial Information System Committee, which is great because I'm on that committee. So we're responsible for the oversight of all of the judicial information. So here's the nice thing is that the state has sort of been divided into sections of when we have to do the conversion. all of the district and municipal courts handle 87% of the state's judicial caseload. 40 years of that legacy system. I'm going to miss it. So we have 300 courts that need to get converted. There are 6 phases. The new software solution is going to allow the courts to manage cases entirely online. It's going to end paper-heavy processes, which a lot of courts are still involved in. We're not, though. We transitioned to a very paper-light court a long time ago. We, as an organization, not as the court, but as a state organization, lobbied for and received funding from the state to create an integration platform for the online system that our court is currently using. And again, so it's helpful to be on these committees, because when you see these things coming down the road and you say, oh no, we love the system that we have, and this is going to wipe our system out and actually take us a couple steps back, got to be great for the courts that only use paper. But for us, we're beyond this. I can then say, hey, we and a couple other courts would really like to keep using this, and so legislature, could you help us out? And they did, which is great. The other thing that's nice is that we were originally slated to be an early adopter of the program. No longer. So we are now, we've been moved to October of 2027 for full conversion, which I think is neat, because we then basically get to watch all of these other courts beta test the program, work through the issues, and then we'll be able to take on the work of the change. But it's, once again, this is a massive project. And this is where I'm going to turn it over to Director Morrill, because this is the work of the administration. I can't even wrap my head around it.
Yeah, so it is, thank you. It's a real bear. Just like if you're moving from house to house, you don't want to pack up all your trash and move it with you. You want to clean it out, donate it, whatever, just get rid of it so you don't have to bring that. We need to do the same with this software. So it means running hundreds of reports to pull data from our current system in different categories, and then, sometimes it's easy as a case that is completely eligible to be closed. Somebody just forgot to do the last set of keystrokes to actually close it out, and by viewing those cases, we can close those out, and that will enable smooth migration into the new system. There's a lot of reports that have to do with finances, partially paid cases, cases that have been paid through collection agencies, cases where the last payment we received was over 10 years ago and they're now eligible for write-off. And so there's hundreds of, I think there's about over 100 reports that we can run. This will literally take hundreds of hours of staff time. And so we're now in the process of combing through those reports, categorizing them, figuring out which are appropriate for court clerks to take on, which are more, leadership type, which have more complicated scenarios such as finances. There's definitely different levels of complexities for these cleanup reports. One thing that Judge touched on that I'll reiterate is the importance of being on committees. So I do chair, as part of my responsibility with the District and Municipal Court Management Association, I chair a committee called Courts Helping Courts, which is a statewide committee. I work in partnership with the Judicial Branch Administrator down in Tukwila, who's the co-chair, and together we provide services for courts who need help, and it could be that they are a very small court and they need help with their, they've got 2 clerks and they're going to be gone and they just need some operational help. We will get together, talk with them, figure out what their needs are, look at a map, reach out to other courts in the vicinity, see who might be able to help. That's sort of the premise of what Courts Helping Courts do. It's completely voluntary. We operate on a small budget that is not connected to the city of Lynnwood, but with all of these courts, 300 courts going live onto new software, everybody needs help with their case cleanup. All courts seem to be running really lean these days. A lot of courts are understaffed, like we are right now. Like we said before, we've got 3 vacancies, and it's really hard to sort of look these reports in the eye and figure out how are we going to do this work while maintaining the same level of service to our clients who have current court cases, and this project will become a center focal point for us so that we can get through it. The need is high because it's going to directly impact how those cases migrate into our system, whether they come over correctly, cleanly. Cases that we can close out, there's some cases that will need to come over, other cases will not. And so the amount that we can streamline, minimize, and just clean up our garbage, as I referenced before, is going to be the most important. And so many courts are stepping forward to ask for the Committee of Courts Helping Courts help with that. And so we have worked together across the state to form sort of subcommittees. We have regional directors within the association to get together with these courts and, pair them up. So if one court is going live at the end of this year and another court is going live at the middle of next year, maybe they can help each other out. But we are really, really trying to drive home the message that courts really need to get ahead of the data cleanup so that they're not bringing their garbage to their new house. And so that's the benefit of being on this committee, is that I can see all of this stuff coming. And so we've pulled the reports. We have thousands of cases to go to. It's going to take hundreds and hundreds of staff hours, but being able to really look at the data and understand what it is and be able to come up with a solution proactively instead of being on the reactive side, it's so much better. And so that's what we're working on. That is what we're working on now, but it will be a monster. If any of you want to come over and watch that process.
One of the other, oh yes.
15 minutes.
Mayor, thank you. One of the other great things is when we were stealing our new leadership team from other courts, our director, our deputy director, our court operations supervisor all have extensive experience with regards to change management and changes specifically with digital court systems. And so these are things that they've done before, and it's going to be incredibly important for our team who's not gone through something like this before, our line level clerks, to have these experienced leaders walking them through it. All right, so let's look forward to 2027, 2028, and our youth education street law project. So there's something called a National Street Law Program. It connects judges and legal professionals with high school classrooms to teach practical law and civics. This is something I actually participated in when I was in law school. I taught street law for a semester at Lincoln High School in Tacoma with another student partner. It was a great experience. I found out in 2025 that Lynnwood High School and Lynnwood Municipal Court were selected to participate in the street law program, and I couldn't have been more delighted. We were only one of 2 people selected in the state of Washington to start up this program and receive funding. So I began working with Margaret Fisher at the Seattle University School of Law, who was actually our professor when back in when I was in law school for the street law program. And she's the special advisor to the Washington Association of Youth Courts. She still works at the law school and runs the street law program. It's amazing the number of things that she does. So our team's already met. We've met with Ms. Fisher. We've met with a teacher from Lynnwood High School. We tried to get started for fall of 2025. It was too late to submit the program to the curriculum, so we're going to try again for the 2027-28 curriculum as part of a civics or ethnic studies class. I'm so excited about this, again, because I've already done this and I know the benefit of it. When you connect with high school students, we don't have kids in court, and it's so important that kids get experience with their government, and experience with court before they end up in court with a traffic ticket or something like that, so that they know that the court's part of their community. We're not separate from the community. This kind of early contact reshapes perceptions. It promotes mutual respect. There's a back and forth between the court and the kids. The students get exposed to legal careers that they might not have considered otherwise. And when judges explain processes directly to students, it promotes transparency, and they get to ask questions that they might not have felt comfortable asking. And the great thing is about it is that it's a low to no cost initiative. This is going to be volunteer time on my part. And again, grant funding from this nonprofit organization. And then on the horizon, again, I want to talk to you guys about the youth. So we have an opportunity under state law to do something called youth court. We don't, again, have that much contact with youth. There's one circumstance where kids who are 16, 17 years of age do come to our court, and that's for traffic tickets. So once you get your driver's license, if you get a speeding ticket or something like that, you are suddenly in adult court as a 16 or a 17-year-old. But the law actually allows us to take those kids and divert them from the traditional legal system into a youth court. And the picture that I have up here is actually of a brand new youth court that was started in Everett District Court by Judge Tony Howard, and his sons participate in the youth court as well. And so participants are part of a restorative justice circle. It's a circle made up of peers, an officer, legal mentors, and they determine, they'll take an individual in and they determine what the appropriate sentence is considering the circumstances, what's going to hold a driver accountable and what will improve their driving in the future. And I participated in the Bothell Municipal Court Youth Court many years ago, and some of the individuals who participated in that youth court since then have now gone on to law school. They've gone on to graduate programs administering and studying their own youth courts. So this is an opportunity to really get people involved in government and really change lives and have that direct contact with youth who may be kind of going down a wrong path when it comes to, a traffic ticket, speeding, just sort of not having that general awareness that our somewhat softer-brained youth have about their own mortality and the mortality of other people and the care for the community. And so I love working with kids, and so I'm looking on the horizon to work, again, with Ms. Fisher, in developing a youth court program for our court. That's also going to be a lot of work, and for the most part, that's also volunteer time. It's going to require a lot of work with stakeholders. We have other projects that we really need to focus on first, like our Blake Affected Cases project and our data modernization project. But this is something that is on the horizon for us as well. We really want to look for ways to connect with the youth in our community. And then I started with judicial independence. I'm going to end with judicial interdependence. And I'm going to quote some case law because I'm a judge and I like case law. So, harmonious cooperation among the three branches is fundamental to our system of government. Only if this cooperation breaks down is it necessary for the judiciary to exercise inherent power to sustain its separate integrity. That's not something I've had to do here. We have a great relationship. We have a model relationship between the three branches in this city. It's a model for the rest of the state. We exemplify judicial interdependence. And I teach judicial independence and interdependence at our conferences. And I'm so proud to be able to brag about how our city does it right. And so you can see, here's the picture of all of us at Day on the Hill. We're adorable and so photogenic. And, really just had a great time. And even though we're separate branches, we have to work together. Reason that I have case law about this, saying this awesome thing, is, of course, when it goes wrong, it makes case law. But we're not like that. We're never going to make case law like that. We're only going to continue with the good, the happy, and the liaising. And so I'm going to end with our court's mission. And our mission is to contribute to the quality of life in our community by fairly and impartially administering justice in a manner that preserves both the dignity and rights of the defendants and the interests of the citizens of Lynnwood. We do it. We're continuing to do it. We're innovating, we're improving, always looking for ways that we can have better access to justice, better fairness. I think we're doing the best that we can with it with our Blake Affected project and our outreach to youth in the next couple of years. We thank you so much for all of the support that you've given us budgetarily, meetings, answering questions, morning phone calls, late night phone calls, things like that. And our doors are open to you. Court is open to the public. You're all welcome to come watch court. Most of the time, court's on Zoom, too. So if you want to go to the court's website, you can click on a Zoom link, and it'll take you to our hearings. You can watch them remotely if you're interested. But anytime someone wants to come watch a court hearing, you just tell me what you're interested in. I will tell you when it's happening, and then I will sit down with you afterwards to explain everything that went on and answer all of your questions.
Perfect. All right. Any other questions? We have 5 minutes left. Councilmember Lutwiler.
What you described with the county court or the county prosecutor, some might describe as an unfunded mandate.
Correct.
So I guess one broad question or just point is, how can we work with the court to advocate to help address, because that we're certainly not the only example of that, but how can we work with you, or at least maybe just hope we can work with you to try to advocate against some of these unfunded mandates. My second question is, so those are decisions they're making from a resourcing, time management standpoint of how they're going to administer or treat those cases. So if you are looking at it from managing the court's resources, what decisions or options are available to you at the municipal court level for handling casework?
So I'll start with your first question. Actually, I'm going to turn that one to Commissioner Grant because he worked at the prosecutor's office more recently than I did, and he's very familiar with some of their funding challenges. So I'm going to turn that first part over to you. You haven't had to talk yet.
Oh, no. Well, I was doing well. So the first question was regarding how could you work with us to provide resources to the county. I can just kind of tell you my experience with the county. Everybody's in a budget crunch. The county, I think, is tasked the prosecutors, the public defenders, and the courts to cut, or at least the initial starting, at over 10% of their budget. And so there was, what we hear is the prosecutor, I don't know if this would ever happen, but indicating that they have to prioritize persons crimes and maybe felonies, so they're not going to prioritize any of the misdemeanors or gross misdemeanors, everything that we handle. So if they don't prioritize that, then that means all the municipalities would go, if the municipalities are interested in prosecuting crimes, would come to the courts. We, as judicial officers, can't control what is or isn't filed in our courts. So if that is what is decided on the county level by their executive branch, the prosecutor, and the police department files them in, then we just handle whatever is in front of us. So it would be you having those relationships with the county council members and talking about the impact that it has on your community and kind of when you talk to your constituents, what their expectations are about criminal justice system and where matters should be handled and shouldn't be handled. Because we understand that there's resource constraints in some of those cases, like the thefts, we were happy to handle, but there's some other more probably serious crimes that maybe should be handled on a different level. So working with your counterparts in the county council is what I would hope, and for you to develop those relationships. The second question was how does it impact us?
So the prosecutors are making decisions
Yes.
from a time and resource management perspective, which then makes it our problem.
Yep. And I'm going to
what
take
are the
this one.
decisions or like similar options available to you for managing casework from that perspective?
What I'm going to tell you is that when it comes to our prioritization of cases, we do have a priority list where we triage. We will always triage our criminal cases first. After that, we will triage our infraction cases, and after that, it's parking tickets, and that's photo enforcement. So right now, we're not necessarily in that situation, but I'll echo what Commissioner Grant said, that it can be very easy for a governing body to say we have X million dollars of a budget deficit, and we can take care of it if each branch and department everyone takes on an equal cut of 10%, but not all branches and not all departments are equal. And so I would urge you to speak with the county prosecutor and again, with your county executive and your county council to explain that those cuts then have a major trickle-down effect on the municipalities.
Great. We'll go to Council President, then Council Member Partial, then that's it as far as time. Okay.
I just want to provide a little context. The decision by the most recent councils to really properly fund our criminal justice system in the city, that is a choice. It is a deliberate choice, and it's one that has not always been the case. And I just want to highlight an article from 2010 and the last budget crunch the city really faced. Lynnwood Municipal Court Administrator Jill O'Kane told the council Wednesday the $830,000 in anticipated cuts to her department would eliminate 10 of their 13 employees. In a memo last week to the mayor and council, Judge Moore suggested it may be necessary for the city to cut its course loose. Quote, "It is the duty of the executive and legislative branches to adequately fund the court. In the absence of a willingness to do so, the city should explore the possibility of disestablishing its own court and instead contracting with Snohomish County for judicial services as it has done in the distant past." So this is a decision we've made to fund our courts, and if we want to continue to do so, I think that's just something to keep in mind.
Councilmember Partial.
Thank you, Judge Befew, Commissioner Grant, Administrator Morrell. You left very little wiggle room there. I feel like very thorough. A couple small questions. How many jury trials last year?
Probably 2 to 3.
Okay. I was wondering why I never get called for jury trials. So that was probably. Also, and this doesn't have to be a right now question, but I am really curious about it. I'm curious to know what percentage of red light violations get paid electronically and what percentage involve return mail to you or people in person.
That's a great question.
And like I said, if you need to, I realize that's a...
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to produce numbers off the top of my head, but we do use a service, a third-party service, to collect our payments. But yeah, that's definitely something that I could differentiate and give you numbers back on that.
Yeah, even close estimate would be just good.
Return mail gets a little tricky because we put that in each of our case dockets, but it's not in a data point.
Right.
So, but we do track our failure to appear rates and things like that. So
that would be the 3 ways people would pay, though, right? They could pay electronically, they could mail a check, or they could show up in person.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
One quick thing, because you brought up closing the court. I just want to tell you, Snohomish County District Court will not take this court on because of the volume of work that we have. So there is no longer an option to outsource the court. Snohomish County District Court also has declined to take on photo enforcement cases. So at one point they were approached by the city of Mukilteo to take on their photo enforcement program. They won't do it. So they don't want anything to do with photo enforcement at this time.
Who did Mukilteo's?
They are doing it themselves.
Interesting. Okay. But very good. Thank you. Exciting things actually are in the future, it looks like, too. Thank you very much. All right. We're going to go to work session item 6B, unless somebody wants to stand up for a minute or so. No? We're good? You want 5? So you want 5? Okay, 5. Wow, 5 minutes. All right, we're here. So item 6B is a briefing on the DBS update on housing and projects. We have Carl Omgren, AICP, Community Planning Manager, and Ben Walters, AICP. Boy, you both here. DBS Director. Gentlemen.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. So the item before us that we're here to talk to you about is in response to a request from you all to get an update on the housing pipeline. And Carl and I will walk you through that. We also have taken this opportunity, as you saw in the slides, we wanted to give you a little broader context on some of the other projects that are in our pipeline as well. And we can talk a little bit about the history of what we've done, and then, of course, what we're looking at now and what we're looking at in the future. And we look forward to your questions. Go ahead, Carl.
Thank you. So we just wanted to go ahead and start off by revisiting a slide that the council saw during the council retreat on the key indicator 1 from the housing action plan. And the big aspect with this is we really want to highlight that housing action plan identifies production of all housing types. And as you can see in the 2020 to 2024, we saw an annual production of housing overall of 403 units for multifamily, a significant jump from the years prior. And in 2025, we saw an annual increase among that. One of the things I want to discuss, and as we really dive into the conversation today, is not only the large multifamily projects that we have had and continue to have, but also the zeros in the middle there, the ADUs, the duplexes, and the 3 and 4 bedroom units. And so this just kind of helps highlight what we have known in the pipeline. This is where we're in a different area. Before, the city used an RS8 zone that we had for a very long time. We had some good historical information where development was going to happen, where an area may get short platted, where things may not happen due to critical areas. We're treading water into a whole new environment with the Unified Development Code, the middle housing implementation, and so we're starting to really see the market react to that. And as you can see, the list on the right of different housing types, these are all different types of configurations that are currently either in for permitting right now or in for pre-development meetings with the staff to really help facilitate identifying what the feasibility of their projects. It ranges from larger accessory dwelling units. We don't limit them at 800 square feet anymore. They're now up to 1,000. Our cottage housing code has been expanded. Additional discussions on detached ADUs. We're starting to see more duplexes being proposed in the city that weren't otherwise allowed. We're also seeing some developments identifying what we are referring to as mixed middle incomes. They're identifying some areas of duplexes, some detached single-family units in the project, so a variety of middle housing units in a single site. We do still see a very large amount of pipeline work in the mixed-use projects and the multifamily projects, but the number in here I really want to start to dive into is we're starting to re-see single-family detached units coming in, but they're coming in at a smaller scale, and I have a site plan to help show that. So that's one of the interesting things as we trend forward on this. I do want to highlight that in some of our previous years, we were seeing single-family homes and ADUs providing anywhere from 15 units constructed up to 32 completed per year. Right now, in our current pipeline that we know about, we have over 42 right here, right now. Those are likely to be occupied within 5 years, in addition to the other ones that are likely to come in throughout this next year. So with all the work we did in the Unified Development Code and implementation of middle housing, we see 122 units in our pipeline right now, just in those housing types. We still have big projects, though. We still have the district with our development agreement with them. We have issued permits on iVista. We do have one lot at Northline Village that is currently in play, and we'll dive into that. And then we do have some other larger projects, such as the Alliance Place TOD project that we'll discuss, and then the Apollo Scriber Creek project that we'll highlight in a moment. One that we want to start with, and we're going to start kind of geographically around the 196th, Highway 99 area, is the Scriber Place project. This one's being done by Housing Hope. It's currently under construction. It's 52 units of McKinney-Vento units specifically to assist those who are experiencing homelessness in the Edmond School District. I believe in the 2023 to 2024 numbers, Edmond School District had over 820 students experiencing homelessness who would be eligible for McKinney-Vento. This doesn't solve all of that. It assists. This project did receive significant assistance from the state. It had a $5 million worth of grants from the Department of Commerce and the federal government through the HOME program. It also had an additional $1.9 million in grants that we partnered with them on through the CHIP program. So it's under construction. We're seeing that happen. Across the street from it that just broke ground is a daycare. And this is where we're starting to see some other aspects that are important to start seeing in an area that could include new neighborhoods, and that is the opportunity for childcare. So this is occurring on that same quadrant right across the street. And one of the things that I thought was interesting as this one came in, this is the first daycare to come in right about the time we expanded where daycares can locate in the city, as well as remove parking restrictions from daycares. So this is the first one that's come in close to that time. I don't believe they were fully under that code. They were reviewed ahead of time, but this is the closest one to that. So it's great to see that investment. This site will have a student capacity of 170, and it is a wide range between infants up through kindergarten care, I believe. We do want to highlight some of the school projects going on. These are voter-approved projects through the bonding, and they're right next to our housing. They are right there and contribute to the surrounding neighborhoods. The College Place Elementary and Middle School are being completely demolished and rebuilt. They're going to flip. Currently, you have elementary school in the north. It will be on the south now. These are coming in as two separate buildings, but are joined and connected. One of the things I want to highlight with this design specifically is that the pickup and drop-off locations for the middle and elementary school are not joined together. They are segmented across. So we have done quite a bit of work in coordination with Edmond School District and Public Works about making sure we can minimize the off-site impacts of pickup drop-off. We all have experienced what that is like, either as a parent or as somebody having to drive through that traffic in the middle of the day sometimes. It is short-lived, but it is impactful, and so we've worked with the school district on best understanding how we can minimize and maintain it as on-site as much as possible. The old Alderwood Middle School, which was annexed into the city just last year, is also under for permitting. One of the biggest aspects with this, and I want to highlight, is that it will create a new intersection on the north end of the site that will connect to the Alderwood Mall Parkway, and that intersection will allow new ferry queuing for pickup drop-off directly on the site. Buses will still take access from 28th Avenue West on the site, and then there'll still be a neighborhood connection to the west. The neighborhood connection to the west does include closing one of the two connections. There's both cul-de-sacs that are connected to each other, but that is to ensure that the fencing and security of the site is maintained. So one of the connections from the neighborhood is being maintained where there were two. Edmonds Commons project, this is off of 68th. This is a smaller multifamily build. It's a little bit different than what we have traditionally seen. It's 2 and 3 bedrooms. It's focused on student housing. It's in for planning review right now. We're seeing this site progress towards, and so we're excited to see how this one transitions into permitting because it is bucking a trend. Why is it bucking a trend? Student housing is the focus. So there's a little bit of a difference that happens between those markets. They are providing some parking on site as well as a little bit of commercial just in the very front. So we're excited to see this one come through. But again, it's under planning review right now. I had mentioned Apollo Scriber Creek. This one's 173 units of affordable housing. It's specifically to help support below 60% AMI. It's also in for planning review right now. Part of the project is waiting to see if they get approval from the Washington State Housing Finance Tax Commission for their LIHTC, the low-income housing tax credits. They also did participate with the city on a CHIP grant for $900,000, which was awarded. So we're seeing momentum for this project moving forward.
I mean, just since I live 2 blocks from this,
Yeah.
I know this is just a computer graphics picture, but what side of the building am I looking at on the left side there?
Sure. So the top image there is looking to the northwest, and the building facade that is running to the right of the screen, that is the building facade that will face Scriber Creek Park. So the facade running to the left of the screen is facing south. That runs off of the main road there.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Thanks.
The next project, I do want to note this is a new slide in your packet. The reason why it wasn't previously included is it did just get completeness review and is now out for public comment. This is the 200th Hasco project that was formerly Pinewood and Tipper Glen. We're seeing 124 units of housing there. Previously, I think it was about 56 or 57 units. 64 of those units are going to be done at 60% AMI housing. 60% or 60 of the other units are going to be senior housing, focused on 30 to 50% AMI. So that is a very, very strong bandwidth of income that we do need to provide housing for as a income level throughout the city. So those are very initial renderings that have come in. It is now under permit review and is out for public comment. Alliance Place, this one's a little bit further out, but why do we want to include it? This site's difficult. It is. This is the Sound Transit TOD site. Housing Hope is going to be developing the site. The Sound Transit has already gone through the request for proposal process and has already selected Housing Hope. The site has a creek underneath it, so right now we are working with them actively on the daylighting the stream and working with Department of Ecology, Department of Fish and Wildlife, the tribes, Sound Transit, the development constraints, all of these pieces. So while we're a little ways out, the project concepts right now include 167 units, focused from 30 to 60% AMI, as well as focusing on some family-sized units. One of the reasons we want to bring this one up specifically, as the site is fairly constrained, some development certainty may be necessary, and that's something that we have typically executed and partnered with projects on through development agreements. So this is a project that may come back to the City Council in the future. As you know, the district, as we kind of stay towards the city center area, 13-acre town center focus, we are just had a meeting yesterday working on the ring road. So as we continue to advance our obligations of the development agreement, the district is continuing to work on housing partners and ensuring feasibility for their first phase of development with the multifamily. Sticking within City Center and a project that just received a temporary certificate of occupancy and has just started leasing. This is the Enzo project. 316 units of market rate housing. This is the second project by American Capital Group to be done in Lynnwood. One of the big things about this is starting to bookend the City Center Promenade on 198th and 40th. And it is very interesting as we look at 198th and its progression. You can start to really feel what that street and the future 42nd that Public Works discussed on Monday, what these areas are going to feel like in terms of the future investments, upgrading all those lovely narrow sidewalks we currently have into these newer facilities, but also this connectivity and this fabric that we're building within the neighborhood. It does include some commercial aspects, about 4,200 square feet along 198th. We haven't seen that come in yet. They're still working on bringing in commercial tenants for that. A planned project, Northline Village, we do have the development agreement executed with them. It's still a valid agreement. There are engineering permits ready to issue for the site. They're not small. It's a very substantial lift to do the on-site civil work necessary for the site. There's also been off-site civil work that Merlin Geyer has coordinated with the city and with approvals from WashDOT for their other work to accomplish. We have had movement with them regarding bringing on housing partners specifically, and unfortunately, just recently we found out that one of the aspects of their initial development phase has had to be relooked at, and part of that was because during the underwriting process, which allows them to verify returns on the financial feasibility of the project, it came back as the construction costs were not able to overcome some of the initial on-site work. And there's a great deal of uncertainty in some of this post-COVID market that has left not enough room in the rental capacity of our Lynnwood market to be able to overcome that. Now, that's one of the two phases. They're still looking at potentially considering moving forward on the second, but this is where the cost of construction, cost of permitting. They did identify the sewer connection charges as a barrier within the project. This is where these realities do come into play at times. So we're continuing to discuss with Northline Village and their ownership what things we can do to help make it work, and then continue to advance this project as best we can with the development agreement. So I had alluded to wanting to discuss about some of the residential neighborhood, and this is the slide I want to spend on. All 4 of these units are in for permitting. This was a 13,000 square foot lot, and under RS8, it was 1 unit of housing that could allow 1 accessory dwelling unit. Under the new UDC and our middle housing implementation, 4 units of construction are proposed. So we're seeing a great deal of opportunity there to invest in that. Also, the market is responding to their own parking requirements. We don't require two parking spaces per unit anymore. We only require 1 for these units this size. The market was responding with 2 parking spaces for each of these units inside the garage through a courtyard establishment. I do also want to highlight that each of these units is currently proposed to be 1,900 roughly square feet of conditioned floor space. It's much more scalable back to what was being constructed in the 1970s and 1980s before houses sizes really started to enlarge up to 3,500, 4,000 square feet. So while these still are 100% going to be in the market rate side, 120% AMI and above, as we look at them in the next generation of their use, 20 years from their construction, they come back into a gap that we have not had in our market for quite a while. So this is one example of what we're seeing. We are seeing some other projects proposing to come in with permits. We haven't seen them yet. They're in process of some of these detached single-family units closer to 1,500 square feet. Getting more efficient, but getting back down to really that size and scale that we have longed to see come back into our market. One of the other projects that we did want to hit on just very briefly of what workload comes into DBS's life, and that is our sound transit work. We're not out of the woods yet with Lynnwood Link. We're almost done. We got just a couple small things left. One of them may come back for city council approval, and that's the commingling agreement, but we're really close, and I can't wait to have that thing wrapped up. And it's been an awesome learning project, because as we look to everything we've done in Lynnwood Link, it's educating and making us the example for what we're doing with Everett and Snohomish County for Everett Link. It's expected later this year that the draft environmental impact statement will come available for review. That will be a big lift. And one of the reasons why it is a big lift is we're also trying to make sure that throughout the Alderwood area, we're preserving development opportunity for future transit-oriented development and future housing. So these are the other ties that we have, is as we have other projects here, the land use component to the transportation side, they're hand in hand to be able to make networks and make neighborhoods function. Yes?
What are we looking at with the DF and B?
Oh, sure. So the draft environmental impact statement is going to review 3 different station locations, D, F, and B. The green line represents 1 alignment, and that is the preferred alignment that's been identified, with the preferred station location as D. Station D aligns with the city's resolution from 2016 that highlighted that is our preferred location. We're not as big of fans of Station B, primarily because as you look outward from that location, the walkability to that site drastically decreases, whereas D, you start really being able to capture west of 33rd. So those are the 3 different station locations, the EIS, or the environmental impact statement is going to review. I do want to highlight some other work on Highway 99. This is currently the vacant site that was formerly, back in the day it was Compact Car Corner. I can't remember what it was very recently, but it's the vacant site, and that is going to be the Audi dealership. These permits are ready to issue. we have them on the books. Unfortunately, in the national climate, due to tariffs and rising costs, vehicle sales are having to take a moment to pause to consider what does it mean to open a new dealership. So this is where we start to see the crossover between permitting and development, really seeing the tie-in back with the national climate.
What's this area's current land use?
This is Highway 99 mixed use, and because it previously was a car dealership, it was a continued use allowed to remain.
Okay, and because they haven't applied for permits yet, is there opportunities to change that?
Oh, Audi already
Or
has.
far, we're way too past that.
We're way past that.
Yeah. They already have permits in ready to issue, meaning that they
Got it.
they could come in tomorrow, submit the fee, and we could have groundbreaking later next week.
Okay, thank you.
Some of the other continued programmatic improvements. One of the things that we're really focused on, as we have so many different questions come in with middle housing, is really identifying how are we answering questions before they start. And then this really comes into our support for SmartGov implementation, the applicant resources, but also making sure our processes are being maintained and standardized. We opened up a whole new system, and as many of you have experienced, when you have 20 people all working in the same system, after 2 years, people start doing things a little bit differently. We want to make sure we're coming back together, that we have that unity forward. We're also working and continuing to advance the Unified Development Code that does include some design standards for the transportation-oriented development. Sign code's on there. Why is sign code on there? We have a lot of questions about signs, and questions about signs slow us down from reviewing other permits. And when we did the Unified Development Code, we did not do significant amendments to the sign code. We had to pull it across. So our main topics within this is really trying to understand and prepare for what's to come and focus on answering questions before they start. And with that, Director Walters and I are available for any questions.
Councilmember Ramada.
One of the challenges that I've heard from constituents and community members about renovations, projects, buildings, all of the things, is that the national climate that we're in right now for contractors, it's creating a culture of that's quite unhealthy in terms of potential scams, people not following through on work, costs being just made up at this point. Is there anything that the city can do as a middleman, whether it's connecting with trusted contractors who we know provide a certain standard and are not trying to scam people out of money? Is there anything that we can do as a city to help kind of navigate this really complex industry?
That's a good question. In general, our basic approach is to be even-handed by basically, as we discuss it internally, not giving endorsements. That said, there are other organizations and agencies that we could look to and make reference to and connect through our website or through providing information. So some are as time-honored as the Better Business Bureau, but I would also look to the Master Builders Association of King and Snohomish County. They will have members, and those members are looked to maintain a certain level of professionalism and integrity. It is a challenging market. Another big factor is a labor shortage of skilled labor. This is part of what some have referred to as the silver tsunami, basically the aging out of the baby boom generation, and the time it takes to replace that those skills, that skilled labor in the trades here in the area. There are a number of factors at play, and you've raised a really good point. Is there a way for us to highlight those who are active in our community, and generally if you're active, you're continually active for a long time, you're not getting into trouble, that sort of thing. One final point, the mayor has asked DBS to look into developing a pre-approved plan program whereby designs for detached and single-family housing units are basically endorsed, or not endorsed, but pre-approved. Like if you submit this design, you can do so with the confidence that we've already approved it and would be just reviewing for site conditions and those type of needs. And so we hope to get that program up and running and have it in place before the end of the year. So that could be one other way that we could provide some assurance and quality to the marketplace.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think also if with these pre-approved plans, if there's a way to cost them out, like I don't know if it comes with like, hey, here's a $300,000 option versus a $75,000 option.
Yeah, Carl, could you speak to that?
This was my conversation with our senior planner at 8:30 this morning. Because one of the things that we want to try and make sure is that we're bringing pre-approved plans on a wide spectrum, not just a single solution, because a single solution doesn't work for everyone. And one of the discussion points as we discuss what the call for submissions from designers and architects is going to be is the price to construct. And one of the things that we're really focusing on is not just having the lowest cost and the smallest units, but also allowing potentially larger units that may cost more, but per square foot may have some variety, and trying to select and bring forward designs that can meet kind of all those different parameters.
Yeah, I also think that would be helpful in terms of knowing whether or not you're paying a fair rate for something when you do approach contractors. If we understand from the city, hey, we know this isn't officially what it would cost, but roughly, you know whether or not you're getting a good offer. If somebody's 3 times that, it doesn't make sense. So that's really cool to hear.
I'm having flashbacks to when I had my driveway repaved, and I had a quote for $45,000 and work to be done at $13,000. There is always contractors who will bid work and will bid it and say, I'm so busy that I'm not going to take it unless I get this amount. And that is, I've been on that side. I understand. That's unfortunately sometimes, that's why we always suggest get multiple bids, read reviews, and always double check insurance, license, and bonded.
Councilmember Partial.
Thank you, Director Walters and Community Planning Manager Holmgren. Maybe in a similar vein, I'm thinking back to kind of the flurry of fee changes that were made last year, and thinking about how difficult it is to encourage low-income housing below a certain AMI level. Do we currently have any possibility for reductions in park impact fees, utility hookup fees, permitting fees for people that are providing that?
We're looking at a couple of options. Of course, as the council knows, if we do straight out permit fee reductions, then I come back to you with a reduced projection on revenues, and then that adds to your budget discussion. That said, we are looking at a couple of options to soften the blow, to make our costs more manageable. For example, you mentioned impact fees. Mm-hmm. So we're in active conversations with the Public Works Director, taking a cue from the state legislature, which is looking at mandating, requiring that impact fees are not collected by cities until the time the project is ready to occupy and receive their certificate of occupancy. Currently, we collect the impact fee at time of permit issuance. Well, for a large project, that can be 18 to 24 months before the impact actually occurs. And also, that means that cost has to be borne by their construction financing rather than typically their long-term debt financing. In a typical project financial scenario, you'll get one loan to construct. It'll be a short-term loan, and then that loan is refinanced as part of a long-term loan on the overall project once it's in the process of leasing up. And so we're looking at making those changes. That would be a big plus and would help in that regard. We're also looking at the 146 or funds. That fund, state legislature did create an option whereby a city could use those funds to defray impact fee costs to qualifying projects. We're currently working with the city attorney to see if we have to make any changes to city code to create that as an option or not. So we are looking at that. There's been a lot of work and conversation with Public Works on the bases for their rate study, trying to be balanced about having rates apply to the same level as what the actual impact is. We currently exempt for single family or other residential units under 1,000 feet from our transportation impact fee. And so that's another way where we can be fair and calibrate our impact fees. Beyond that, the other way that, as the council knows well, is the city's active participation through DBS and Public Works, utilizing the CHIP grant program to help defray the infrastructure costs. I think going forward, one of the biggest cost challenges, particularly in suburban areas, is going to be infrastructure. Suburban cities like Lynnwood, for example, many of them do not have the legacy infrastructure like City of Seattle or older cities, the grid street system, alleyway system. All of that is actually very conducive to infill development. We don't have that here, and it's going to cause a lot of our potential development sites have to spend more on infrastructure to get it up to speed.
Your point is well taken on revenue. My line of thinking is these are some of the first 60% of AMI projects we've seen come along the pipe. So I'm thinking like if we considered some reductions at like a 60% or below level, how many projects would that impact in the city? If it's only a couple, maybe it's something that spreads our money a little better, because part of my frustration is the smallness of Fund 146, and this is maybe another way to supplement those. I'm glad you gave an update on Enzo. I was been driving by there the last couple nights and saw lights on in the building. I thought, oh, looks like people are living in Enzo now. Any idea how soon we might see some retail on that? Any estimates at all?
We don't at this point. Carl may have more to add to it. They are very basic retail shelves. They do not have like some of the utility features that you would want for or need for like a restaurant. Okay. Unlike across the street, which they decided to make some accommodation for at least one of their sites to be able to serve as a restaurant. That was an active choice on their part. So we are working with them. Sarah Cho, the City Center Program Manager, is working actively with their retail broker, has already forwarded numerous inquiries, but as of yet they haven't landed. And Carl, you want to add to that?
Yeah, one of the biggest aspects is their inquiries that have gone the furthest are typically restaurant-based, and there is a cost with having what's called a grease trap, and that is to make sure that grease is not entering our system. And it is a costly aspect to add after the fact. I do look back on it and take that as a lesson learned, that it is cheaper to do it with construction than post, and as we look at where we have mixed use in the future and our requirements, is making sure that we're providing that readiness to the future aspect with that. But that's been the biggest aspects that we saw. And we did see delayed commercial implementation at Ember as well. And it's not uncommon that site opens and lease up of the residential space happens relatively quickly, and the commercial lags behind. That's very common.
I do want to offer to council, I'll put myself a bit on the limb, but I'm sure they agree. If you would like to have a tour of Enzo, Sarah can arrange it for you. We had a staff tour about a week or so ago, and I'm sure they'd be happy to show off their project. So we'd be happy to make that happen for you. I did do that for former council member Altamirano Crosby when we had that first wave. She wanted to actually see these new buildings and came away impressed.
That would be fantastic. Hopefully, one last short question. Will the Northline Village project break up that mega block? Is there a plan for a through street on the west side of that?
Yes.
Yeah, go for it, Carl.
There's a new planned street front that would extend 46th from 200th all the way to 196th, as well as a 45th that would be 4 blocks long. It would also connect 198th over to the new 46th as the minimum. So those 3 main streets are significant grid outs. And then there's likely another 1 block street to be added. I believe it was going to be 199th to be in there. There's a mix within the agreement of which ones are going to be private, which ones are going to be public over a period of time. But the big aspect that we were able to have with Northline Village to help break up those grid blocks is a approval of a new signal at 44th and 198th. Because as you know, as a pedestrian, there's no way to cross there at all. And the promenade is such an important piece of that to be able to have that connection, that intersection would need to be signalized. It also helps facilitate future grocery stores at the Northline Village site with that signalization there as well.
Thank you very much.
Vice President.
Thank you for the update. This is great. Lots of good things coming. 2 things. The development there with the Housing Hope and the Kitty Corner. Have there been any talks on infrastructure with the school there? There's only 2 ways to get into that elementary school, and that entrance is already messed up because it swerves. The bus can't even go in while parents are leaving. There's a whole wait for the parents to leave, and then the bus and so it's a whole unofficial wait and go, and the apartments aren't even there, much less the kitty corner. And the only other way into that school is off of over there by Wilcox, down below, and you have to go, up the speed bumps and around to the drop-off area. And so I'm just curious if the city, the school district, or any of those site developers have considered the impacts to the school and the traffic there with these developments.
Sure. So because it was more than 50 units, it did go through, I believe, a traffic impact assessment a couple years ago when it was under for permitting. It is already permitted. Both of them are already through. Kitty Academy will be improving all sidewalks around their intersections, and then there's also going to be some street improvements done that should help provide some improvements. I do remember stop control was a discussion in the development engineering application, and that review was underway. One of the interesting things about the Housing Hope project was it is located on Old Edmond School District land that was then rezoned by the city of Lynnwood to help support this project, and taking it over kind of in that shift of leadership from the planning group. I don't recall what the direct discussions were about that flow. It'd be easier to look at a map with you and understand that aspect.
If no one's thought about it, it's definitely something to consider right now, because you basically have a single lane road in to drop off all the kids at that school, other than the parents that are coming from Wilcox, and not everyone is coming from that direction. And so just something to consider for that development.
Yeah, I'd like to look at a map with you on it.
Yeah, definitely. It's not intended to be one lane, but it curves and so you cannot get either the short bus or the big bus through there. And so it's a thing, even without this development. And my only other question, comment, concern is really regarding the Northline Village. I'm really upset to hear that one of the phases is at risk of not moving forward. And I guess my question to you guys is, obviously we're trying to do what we can. I brought up the concern of pulling all of these levers and them impacting our biggest projects, and I was told there would be no effect with either, like all the big things. And so this is the heart of the city, and it's empty. Like, how often are we meeting with them? And are we, like, not that you're not, but like, what more can we do? Can we, like, have a little separate roundtable, a separate task group? Can we meet with them more often? How can we be, like, an even better partner? I know we can't force their hand or make them do anything, but it's like we're being held hostage here. And how can we help this project move along? The people care more about Northline Village than a lot of these other projects and things happening around the city.
No, I appreciate your frustration, council member, and Carl can give some more detail here. But more broadly speaking, it's a very large site. And the owner is a very deliberate, very careful real estate operator. They are not one to go and push the limit. And the timing of their project relative to what's been going on in the marketplace, that's been an issue as well. We meet with them regularly, about once every 2 weeks. That is a standing meeting, and we cover a lot of details. We don't always meet, but it's always there, and we hold that time. We do not overschedule it, and we do meet most times. We are working with them. We are in constant communication about different things that we could do. Obviously, the increase in our development charges caused a hiccup. I don't know how much it really had to play, but it was one of many factors relating to one of the blocks being considered for a development partner. That is when we talked to them about deferring payment of the impact fees. They took special note of that. They think that would help tremendously related to that. We had hoped that development elsewhere in City Center would prove the market, and it has, and to see if that would, change the picture. Not yet. We have a very close working relationship with Merlin Geyer's program management. We have worked with them on a number of different approaches. We'll continue to work with them. They are obligated under the development agreement to pay for a significant amount of infrastructure, complete rebuild of the west side of 44th, a new intersection, signalized intersection at 198th and 44th. They've already put in place upsized wet utilities and other utilities in South 200th. That's an investment they've already made. We did that in collaboration and coordination with Sound Transit. We, the city, helped broker that arrangement. And so we'll continue to do that. Totally understand. It's very visible. It is right there at our new front door of the rail station. And, at the same time, it is subject to the marketplace. And it's subject to the investment and return expectations of Merlin Geyer and their investors.
No, thank you for that. That really honestly helps. And if there's anything that we can do that we've made a requirement that maybe we can take back or start looking at grants for, if it's an intersection, if it's a light. I mean, any little baby thing, if it's a councilmatic decision on one thing to just like move the buck, like anything that we can do, I would hope that you would let them know that not only you guys, but the council
Well, I think,
is definitely
Councilmember, you
willing.
just did, since this is a very public meeting, and they'll probably be watching or they'll hear about it soon after.
We're here to help. We're here to collaborate. This is important to our community, and we want to see this project move forward for all of the things that it's going to provide to us. And so anything that we can break off or slough off to help these guys get moving, I would just absolutely appreciate. Thank you, guys.
I appreciate hearing that. I'll just say that on behalf of the city and part of my role and obligation, as you just said, we would want to make absolutely sure that if we were to make that kind of change, make that kind of investment, it would be tied to an actual result, not a aspirational result, but a physical result. But I appreciate your support, and I'm sure they would too. And Carl, any details you want to add to this?
I would just like to say there's not a small lever to push right now. The project isn't faced just with things in Lynnwood, but also just in general. There's a lot of constraints out there, and I don't want to understate the work that they've already done regarding their civil planning efforts and the engineering that they put into being able to put sewer and water and stormwater throughout their entire site. That is a lot of design efforts that they've put into the site. So unfortunately, with some projects like this, it's a lot of underground stuff that no one sees. And I do look at this site still similar to Totem Lake. Totem Lake took a long time to actually go, but look at it now. It is a place. And this is an iteration within the phase, and the development agreement we did contract with them had a longer time lead because there was concerns about these type of costs leading up. Now, hindsight's 2020. Apparently, we saw the clock where we were able to predict COVID was going to delay some of these things, create some of these challenges, but we foresaw that there may be some extenuating circumstances to create this longer timeline.
No, they have put in a lot of work, and I just want to make sure that they know and we are being the best business partner and collaborator, because I think I told you guys about that panel that I went to in Seattle where the DBS department got feedback from developers that they were forcing them basically to fix the infrastructure as part of their project. And then when they just changed this one little requirements, like 6 projects came online within days. And they said they were, like, they didn't realize, they had kind of heard it, but they didn't realize it was that many and that the results would be that quick. And so just kind of circling back to that comment that I had made, just anything that we can do would be good. Not that we're not doing it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, guys. Great informative presentation as always. Don't see you as much these days talking about just housing. We kind of took a pause from that from last year. But I did just want to draw attention to the chart. If we could pull back to the slide that showed the chart of all the different projects kind of coming up in our city with the numbers. Yeah. I just want to draw some of my colleagues who might not have been here last year to the mixed use, sum total of units. We had a terrific presentation by Chris Collier last year about productivity per acre. And if you are concerned about taxes and tax burdens on our residents and maintaining levels of service that are adequate, the biggest bang for buck you can get pretty much is mixed use, as was explained to us. I will include a link to the video presentation that was given to Snohomish County tomorrow along those lines. It's really fun and really funny and really educational in the next council leadership memo, so just kind of watch for that. I also want to talk about just the permit cost, the impact fees. We did adjust those pretty suddenly last year, and I just want to make sure the way it was framed to us last year is a lot of this was about cost recovery. And based on the data you showed us, maybe I'm misremembering, we were pretty much in the norm. We were just getting to where other peer cities were in the region. Is that an accurate representation?
It is. We were basically, prior to the increase, we were middle of the road for the most part. And I'm talking specifically about permit fees. I'm going to put aside for a moment impact fees. So in permit fees, with the increase that we proposed and was ultimately adopted, we moved up to the higher cost cities within Snohomish County and with there. And it is related to cost of service. I want to point out the tremendous decision and investment that prior city councils made in, first off, the creation of DBS 5 years ago in order to improve our customer service, streamline our permitting. That was the entire point, as the mayor can attest to. And part of that was the structure and the staffing that was recommended by Strategica. That was the efficiency report that's been often alluded to. If you want to get to sleep, I offer that as a reading, although it's kind of our Bible within the organization. It kind of outlines our structure. There's value in that. And that is shown by the fact that this council has heard numerous times from big and small developers how much they like working with your permitting department. And that doesn't mean that we're cutting corners for them. That doesn't mean we're letting them off. It means that we're a collaborative and cooperative and informed and timely and caring permitting department. We invest in the success of the projects that we are charged to permit. And I think that has value towards the council's goals and the mayor's goals of promoting the build-out of the city's vision for city center and for the rest of the city.
And then you mentioned that you were going to talk about impact fees separately.
Yeah, so I'll let Carl speak to that more. The very institution of the system development charge that is a major change. That is not unheard of. It's not unusual. Cities do that. It is certainly necessary at this time, as you've heard from Public Works Director Bond. It reflects the reality that the city of Lynnwood has benefited from tremendous foresight and investment of its predecessors some 50 years ago. And of course, infrastructure doesn't last forever. And it is at that place in time where we have to replace, and we also have to size it so that it can handle the growth. We are always looking at what is the impact of that? Where are we at in the marketplace? We have those conversations frequently. Carl?
Yeah, I'd just like to, one of the things about impact fees is it is a little bit different when we start trying to do apples to apples with other organizations and other cities, is because we're trying to compare what the status and rate of our growth is going to be against what our capital facilities are able to currently provide. So whereas cities such as that maybe in the North Shore School District, I think they have like a $20,000 school impact fee. Edmond School District has zero. However, we have a larger park impact fee than other cities in that area potentially. So there's a little bit of an apples to apples challenge within that. The biggest aspect I think that was flagged regarding the impact fees was the jolt. And as we look at these projects, the margins are tight. The area and room for continued concern, both the financial climate caused by the political climate leaves a lot of uncertainty in the room. And so as you're looking at, frankly, being able to make money on a market rate project, when you have those factors and an increase, it's easiest to point to the increase among all of the other factors you also already have. So.
No, I appreciate the context, and I'm of the opinion, just personally, that permit fees are not why housing is not being built necessarily there. There's a lot of different levers. It's complex. And even talking to mayors and other cities that have been trying to improve their housing production, they found that in, for instance, the city of Chattanooga, they actually increased permit fees deliberately in talks with developers in order to hire and expand more staffing in their version of DBS in order to increase turnaround times or decrease turnaround times on permits, improve customer service, and they found that was actually much more preferred by the developer community itself. So it's not just those numbers that matter. However, I do think there is a point to be made about those connection charges that we put forward. And I wonder if this council, we do have a lot of new folks here, could use maybe a refresher on like how housing is financed, what that looks like, what the role of our fees and impact fees and permit fees play in the process of getting something constructed, and how that is eventually passed down to the overall cost to homeowners or future homeowners as well as renters.
Sure. Director Walters and I actually had this conversation earlier, and we really feel the best people to be able to talk about that would come through a developer roundtable with the groups that size who can really talk to what their financing truly is and how they go about being able to make some of those decisions. As much as Ben and I work to understand their financing, because it is not our bread and butter of what we do every single day, it is much harder to track, and we're able to speak the language doesn't mean we do it every day.
We're not living their pro forma.
Yes.
Yeah, pro forma is basically their financial model that they use to determine go or no go on a project.
Okay, so just to the broader council then, would you all be interested in a more robust developer roundtable where we do it a little bit more like maybe an interactive workshop like we did with the Hygiene Center and really kind of dig into all this and get all the different perspectives?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I think them educating us on the financial back end would be immensely helpful because we're the financial decision makers, and so to know how, X affects Y and Z would be helpful.
Yeah, I think your points were well taken from before, but anyway, I'm always trying to get my new marching orders, so great, I'll look into that.
Okay, we're getting towards the really end here, so we have Council Member Leutwiler and Owens up. So, not Owens. Okay, so Councilmember Leutwiler.
I do think there's something worth saying. We talked about costs, and maybe just I would also emphasize the other side of it is what do you do with the costs, the money that you bring in, and you can leverage that to try to empower DBS and provide a fast process, good customer service to incentivize that relationship. So I just want to give a shout out because I think we've certainly heard that and want to continue building that relationship. And there's other things you can point to on investments the city's making with Town Square Park, the district, 42nd, and that's part of the narrative and part of the considerations, I would think, of investing as a partner with all of these public-private companies on making this a vibrant place that you want to build because there's other businesses, you've got a great customer base. So just to sum that up, as I think when you bring in the money, there's that question of what are you doing with it, and are you spending it in a way to try to encourage more development, or are you using it as a way to maybe block development that you don't want to have happen in your city? But I don't want to get down that rabbit hole any longer. My initial question was just going to be, so you talked about delaying when the city makes them pay was it just the
Impact fees.
The impact. So when we say that, are we talking also about like park?
Yes.
Impact fees? Okay. So across the board, all of our impact fees, delaying when we make them pay it. I think that's a great. I'm really glad. I mean, I know just enough to be dangerous on a lot of these topics, but it's really great when I look through, books and just always trying to look at what are the best practices, what are other cities, what are other jurisdictions doing, and that's one of those practices of, letting we're not saying you're not going to pay this. It's just allowing them not to carry that cost, like you said. So I'm just very always excited when I hear us looking at things that are best practices, and oftentimes we're kind of leading the way and adopting those maybe compared to other jurisdictions. So I just definitely support us, continuing that due diligence and analysis. It sounds like you're talking with Public Works and Parks and everyone, so we want to go through that. But I think that's great thinking of how do we partner effectively with people. But to your point, like the value and you have a responsibility. So just a shout out for that thinking.
Yeah, thank you. Not all cities you do it, more are. Here's the fundamental question for cities when you move it to, let's say, certificate of occupancy. You're absolutely guaranteed you're going to get paid if you require that payment at time of permit issuance. They can't start without it, right? So you're going to get, so there's that. If you move the payment time to when the project is built, but it isn't yet occupied, our only enforcement, or our primary enforcement, not only, is that certificate of occupancy issuance. Now, actually enforcing that, right? The biggest way to enforce it is that the lenders and insurers will not insure and will not lend unless that certificate of occupancy is there. But if they have some other means of financing it, then we get into a tussle, including legal action, which takes longer and is less of a guarantee. So one of the things that Jared Bond, the Public Works Director, and this will be a concern as well for Joel and for Monica from Parks, is ensuring we have the mechanisms in place to make sure where the city gets paid at that point in time. And we'll be, as you said, borrowing from best practices from other cities to try and do that.
I think it's worth noting that the state legislature in 2015 made a requirement of cities to enact this for single-family developments. So, and the biggest concern from cities at the time was making sure it's collected. To date, Lynnwood has not had one developer use the deferral for single-family impacts because the mechanisms used in place to make sure of payment, the lien and things like that, complicated the sale of the units to be able to get occupancy to then pay for the impact fee. So there is a lever system that happens within this. It's making sure that it's structured correctly and financed correctly.
Yeah, and you're the experts, and I'll let you do all of that analysis. I just want to give you the kudos of at least, sleuthing it out because, again, it's just what are ways we can try to be better partners or try to offset these costs in a challenging environment for so many reasons.
You brought up another point, though, related to infrastructure, and I know time grows short, but I just needed to comment, especially since you just recently got a presentation from Public Works on transportation. Many of the projects the city's been pursuing, has funded, is funding, has constructed, it is part of the it is the result of environmental analysis through the EIS process, environmental impact statement process, the sub-area plan for city center and other parts of the city, which go through a tremendous amount of analysis and research related to what kind of infrastructure needs to be in place to support the growth that we've planned for. And so projects that are coming before you are the result of that. And in those analyses, there are assumptions, of course, and assumptions can change, but they're rather conservative. And they are all about, as the area grows more dense and more people are living in a smaller space, how do you maintain mobility of different types? The reality of Lynnwood, as the point was made on Monday night, is a good part of our economy is based upon making it easy for other people from around the region to get here, spend their money here, and then be able to conveniently go back home. And a big part of our city center plan is based on that, but it isn't only that. We're in transition. We're also building a downtown, and that means we have to be able to be mobile. The new residents have to be able to get around through a variety of different means, multimodal. And so, we're looking forward to that conversation with you all. Really appreciate your interest in it. But I wanted to let you know why these projects are coming before you. That's why.
Very good. Thank you. Great presentation. Appreciate all the information. Good questions. So we will bid adieu to you all. And then we go on to item 6C, which is the council liaison reports. And I'm going to let Council President run the gambit on this one.
Okay. So I'll just go ahead and start, and then I figure we'll go clockwise. Sound good? Great. Okay. So I'm obviously just the liaison or a representative of our area to a couple of boards and commissions. There's, of course, the Puget Sound Regional Council. Once again, I'm on the Growth Management Commission. And we meet tomorrow, so I don't have anything really to report, except we're going to talk about regional growth centers, which is kind of a big deal for us. More to report next month. Still on the disability board with Councilmember Mata. They're prepping for a conference coming up soon, and they're trying to figure out who can actually make it down to it to learn more about Left One. The Councilmember Mata and I had a discussion about the purpose of some of these conferences and learning more about this program. And I think there is actually some relevance. I had some more thoughts on it. In seeing how the state is using its Left One, which is kind of a I don't know, healthcare, long-term care fund. They're dipping into it for a lot of different uses and are trying to, if I recall correctly, in a former Left One meeting, they're trying to get local municipalities' Left One funds amalgamated into theirs so that they can be tapped. And that is a little concerning to me. We have a really well-funded one that takes care of our people, and I'd like to see what's going on with that moving forward. And I figured that's going to be a topic at that conference. So just my thoughts on that. Other than that, there's also the Finance Committee. I've got two others on there, so I'll just kind of go over the highlights of the most recent meetings. We are looking at how to pace our budget priority discussions this year. Within the context of how our departments make these decisions and trying to line up some meetings at the right time. We're exploring different approaches to budgeting. The vice president, and maybe she'll have more to say on this, has been bringing up equitable budgeting practices and participatory budgeting. And so we're just exploring different ways that we can take a nuanced approach to this complicated topic. We have been looking, and we had a long conversation about our reserve requirements, and we all made some pretty big decisions last year changing those, and I think we'll have a bigger discussion on that on Monday. But we are having discussions about that. We also have been discussing and studying up on the Economic Development Fund, the history of that, and other strategies to build our capital fund reserves. And I think we'll hear a bit more about it on Monday, again, when y'all get a report from the finance director. But she finally was able to get inflation adjustments added to some of our sales tax revenue charts that we kind of have been plotting over the years. And within the context of the COVID years, I think it's really relevant to look at the purchasing power of the dollars we are collecting and see what we're actually getting in the city at this point. But we'll have a bigger talk about that later. Sorry. Last month we had a meeting with the South County Collaborators, which that sounds nefarious. That's just the South County mayors and council presidents discussing a variety of different topics. Thank you. And the word of the day, my voice is gone. The word of the day was metropolitanization. And the whole point of it was looking at how South County can operate more as a metropolitan area, sharing its services and the strengths of each city in its area. You got a chocolate for me? Thanks. I got it. Where did this come from? Really interesting discussions that kind of underscore the challenging financial environment that all of our neighboring suburban cities are finding themselves in right now. And I'll hopefully have more to report on that in the next couple months as we have our next meeting. That's all for now. Thanks.
I think it's me. I am the liaison to the Youth Council, and I don't want to give a big update because they will be presenting to us. So more than anything, I'll tell you what I've been doing. So we have launched the Youth Council, and it went live. There's socials. The application is available online. And we have started to do outreach. And then earlier this week, I spent a few hours going around and dropping off postcards to about 5 nonprofits and spending 30 to 45 minutes with each of them, letting them know about the program and the kind of kids that we're hoping to get. Was at a high school today. And so we've done one high school last week, one this week. We have 2 next week, and then one more that hasn't kind of responded that we're working on. And so we've got we have enough applicants to actually have a youth council as of now, which is good, which is why they wanted that March 15th early review date. So that's moving right along, and then we'll get an update here in the next month from the Parks Department on basically where we're at that time. I'm also the liaison to the Veterans Committee, and I just recently got whatever our mayoral assistant, Lila, had. She is the liaison to the Veteran Committee, and so she passed along what we had. And basically, it was just a map of what the city has been doing, like the bare minimum basics. We do Memorial Day, Veterans Day. We're in charge of these signs. And so it was a nice list to know, like, at bare minimum what we do. I found out that the Heroes Cafe does meet, and now they're meeting twice a month, which I was unaware of. So I've just finally added myself to the email list. But I've been doing some background research on the businesses in Lynnwood, and we've got 11 registered veteran-owned businesses. And I've met with 2 just to brainstorm on ideas of, like, what would they want to see with this new reboot of the Veterans Committee. And just to inform you guys, these are some of the, other than the Heroes Cafe, which I hear are very well attended. I've never been. I want to go to the next one. But I would imagine it's an older demographic just based on the times that they're meeting. And so what we want is this to be a bigger, more varied demographic group that gets together at minimum once a month, other than the breakfast and the lunch, for maybe hikes, bingos, collaborations. Maybe there's some veterans that own businesses and want to have something at their establishment. Fitness classes, game nights, karaoke nights. We talked about talking to Snow Isle about maybe having a little spot where we could have a resource center, or on our council table, even just for the interim, having the literature. Because right now, what I found out is when I drove to Heroes Cafe, nobody was home, nobody answered the phone. There was nowhere anyone could go. When I drove and finally found out where the BFW, it actually is in the Boys and Girls Club, and no one was there either. And so I'm like, wow, like they don't have anywhere to, like, go and get the support and see other veterans right now that I have found. So that's what I've done. That's what I'm doing, and I'll continue to work on that. Hopefully we'll be ready to, like, by next update to have our first meeting. That's it.
I have 2 reports. The first is very brief because the district was here just recently and talked to us quite a bit. I think they really covered everything current that's going on with the district, so I won't belabor that and say any more on that front. I also did get to have my first meeting with the Chiefs Advisory Group, which is kind of a new group for us. community leaders, business leaders come in. It's just kind of free, open discussion with Chief Langdon, and current events are typically on people's minds. So people want to talk about the recent shooting at the park near Meadowdale High School. I would say, without going into too much detail, because Chief asked me not to, our police did a tremendous job in researching that particular case and finding the suspect really quickly. Like the amount of work that went into that was tremendous. And juvenile cases are not always easy to get information in, so really impressive police work on the part of the LPD on that. And then there were questions from the community members largely about school resource officers. And I don't think I'm stepping out of line. I guess Chief Langdon has said this many times. He is willing to provide school resource officers, but that's not a city decision. That's it would be our decision to provide those officers, but it's a decision of the Edmond School District and their school board whether they want school resource officers or not. So that was a question of curiosity out there. And yeah, mostly just the relationships between city, police, schools, and how we can do diversion for youth and hopefully keep them out of trouble.
Awesome. So I'm on a few different committees. So the DEI commission that I'm on, the biggest update is that they're going to be relaunching soon the community partner sponsorship program. So essentially it's a program that provides financial support up to $1,000 for local community events, projects, and initiatives. So the application, it's not up yet. So as soon as I have that date, I'll make sure to put it out there for everybody. But that's a really cool way to get people involved in the community, put on an event, and get some money to help support it. I'm on the Tourism Advisory Board. Maybe two or so weeks ago, we had a great tourism meetup at the Events Center with a whole bunch of stakeholders and business owners in the community. The biggest thing we talked about was potentially a shuttle service in the city. The goal is for the FIFA World Cup maybe to alleviate some of the traffic at the light rail center, have a shuttle that's going between the different hotels, between the mall, between the event center. So that's something that they're exploring right now. The stakeholders would have a financial investment in that as well. So it wouldn't fall onto the city. But I think that was important to share. The Disability Board, no big updates. Again, we were talking about the conference. And I'm kind of torn about it. On one hand, I think it'd be really interesting to go and gather a lot of materials. I also kind of struggle internally with knowing that we're in a budget crisis and how the sacrifices that we're asking our departments to make and our people to make. This feels like one of those things that doesn't seem like it needs to be a priority right now. That being said, I haven't attended it. This is just from conversations I've had with people who have attended it, and if there's other ways for us to get this information. So I've inquired about if there's an offline option, a Zoom option, something that can help us save a little bit of money, because it's at a nice resort, and there's a banquet, there's a gala, there's a it's nice, and it feels yucky, I think, given the moment that we're in. But I'm trying to get the information still. So if the only way to get it is to go, then we'll go. Hopefully we have other options. Alliance for Housing, affordable housing, nothing new. It only meets once a quarter. I did get an invite, and maybe other council people have as well. Habitat for Humanity in Snohomish County is launching a new project, their largest in Snohomish County, and it's right here in Lynnwood. It's a cottage housing project. And so they're having an event that I'm going to go to and learn some more about it. I don't really have any other information. It's very sparse, but we'll see what happens there. Youth Council had a great day at Mount Lake Terrace. I don't even know if I'm officially in a liaison for it, because we haven't really had that conversation. But I've been in the meetings and been going, and kids are really excited about it, and they have a lot of great ideas. And I feel like the kids are okay, and I feel inspired about the future. So that's my update.
So Planning Commission, obviously they were just here, so I don't really need to do too much of an update because they just kind of did it for me. Plus, actually, we didn't have our meeting this month, so not really too much to update from last month. The Art Commission, I have not been able to attend a meeting, but I am still up to date on everything going on with them. So they've got a soccer ball art project going on that they're accepting applications for. Ending on the 31st of March. There's a $200 stipend that's possible with that, so it'd be cool to get the community members out there get excited about this. It's for the FIFA World Cup coming up. We want a good art project for the city for that. Also, they're moving forward with a pretty good budget for the memorial project over here at the community gardens. The applications are open until April 5th also. So good to get some community members excited about that. That can be a whole team, though, too. There's a pretty good budget on that. Also, April 12th is the due date to submit art projects to be put in the town hall for June and July. They also just set up some new art out there, if you guys hadn't noticed. I think it was yesterday it got set up. And then also Lynnwood Idol Singing Contest is also coming up. So if anybody in the community is interested in getting involved in that, that's April 30th. There is a $500 reward for the winner. That's my update.
For the Parks and Rec Board, they did a tour of the rec center this past meeting, and I think you'll see some of that come up when the Parks Department is here. I believe sometime next month to talk about capital projects and a little bit of the Parks Love topic that I think Council President Coelho talked about. The bigger update would be for the Human Services Commission and some of the on their realm. I think you probably all got the email anyway, but Kyle Ward had mentioned the RFP for the opioid abatement funds. That's gone out. I think the application process is due the end of this month. I'll have to double check that. But that is an exciting milestone. And then obviously we had the Hygiene Center Roundtable that occurred during the same night that the Human Services Commission would have met, which worked out well to be able to have, I think most of the commissioners, if not all of them, made it out there. So we were all there for the roundtable, so there's not much of an update to share. I think there's just a lot of excitement and concern and interest overall about what's happening with kind of everything that came out of that with like the Good Neighbor Agreement and, you know, just a lot of interest and wanting to make sure we keep up that momentum. But otherwise, that's it for me.
Thank you. So I have just a couple updates. The first one is the Snohomish County 911 Board. Tomorrow will be my first meeting with them. I'm an alternate for Chief Langdon, so I'm very excited about that, and I'll be looking forward to reporting out. I also sit on the History and Heritage Board, and what I learned last week is that if we don't know our history, it's an issue. So on March 29th, from 1 to 2:30, there's going to be an event called Living Voices, Fly for Freedom. So I'm going to give you a history lesson briefly. The Living Voices presentation is a little-known stories and contributions of working women in World War II aeronautics industry, amplifying the experiences of Black women through Rosie the Riveters, who built planes in Boeing's factories, and the Women Air Force Service pilots, WAFs, they were over 1,000 American civilian volunteers who flew military aircraft in the U.S. Armed Forces during World War II to free males for combat. They'll also be talking about the Tuskegee Airmen, which is and their Double V Victory campaign. That was initiated by the Pittsburgh Courier in 1942 and was an effort to advocate for African American rights during World War II. And the Double V is the idea of victory at abroad, fighting fascism and the Axis powers, and victory at home, fighting racism and discrimination. And it's a free presentation, again, on March 29th between 1 and 2:30 at the Wickers Building at Heritage Park. So I hope to see some of y'all there. And that is my update.
All right, very good. Some good stuff. Any new business for tonight? Councilmember Partial.
Just a quick question, if I may. With regards to the agenda, when it says 60 minutes on the agenda, is that intended for 60 minutes for presentation plus council questions, or is it 60 minutes for the presentation itself?
If I may.
Yeah.
That's been an ongoing conversation. We have been trying
okay.
to hammer this out over the past 4 or 5 months and make it clear because these 45, 60, 90 minutes, these are minutes that are come up with, correct me if I'm wrong, the presenters themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so we're trying to make sure that they understand that if they're looking at a council that is wanting to ask questions and talk, that they are baking that into the time. And I think we have found that there might have been a misunderstanding, and they had not been doing that, and that's how we ended up, I think, on Monday with a 2-hour meeting that went 3.5. So this has just been an ongoing thing. We're still clearing it up and making sure that they fully understand how much we want to talk, and if there is going to be a conversation piece or a Q&A session that they're baking in, 20 minutes minimum. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, I think it helps us as well if we know the intent is, they finished their presentation at 40 minutes. We should try and keep our questions to 20 minutes. So knowing that going forward, hopefully it should be helpful with your timing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the directors have been so informed.
Thank you for indulging my new business.
Anything else? Just don't turn off. We are adjourned.
Was it like Monday?